Despite being a good movie, K-pop Demon Hunters has its own fair share of flaws, and I want to highlight them because I believe that if these shortcomings were rectified, K-pop Demon Hunters could have been an even better movie. So I will also offer potential fixes as to how the writers could have handled the scenes that broke the otherwise strong continuity of the movie. The biggest issues lie with the lack of world building and the justification for how the general public is not aware of demons and how the climax of the movie unfolds. In the very beginning of the movie, when the Huntrix girls perform the How It's Done song, they fly out of the airplane and arrive like comets on the stage and kill the few demons that managed to escape the plane. These demons are killed in plain view of thousands of fans. However, the movie does offer a small kind of solution to the problem. The fans and others believe those were just special effects associated with the show. That's not the best justification, but it's a lot better than nothing. It establishes that Huntrix is known for doing pretty crazy stunts and having incredible special effects and demon costumed people involved in their live shows. But I would say that this would also require additional justification, because in a similar case at the end of the movie, you can't say that Kima and the Huntrix girls flying through the air are just incredible staging and special effects. Kima's presence at Namsan Tower and the fact that this guy even made a shirt about Kima means that everyone there, along with potentially hundreds of thousands of other fans, know that demons exist. However, based on the ending of the movie, I am led to believe that the writers want the audience to think that the general public is still unaware of demons, but that doesn't get justified in the slightest. But I also believe that this could have been easily fixed with more world building and by establishing the hunter's powers more thoroughly. For example, the power of the hunter's songs could erase memories about demons. This would make sense with everything that has been established in the movie and would strengthen the overall world-building continuity. And in order to not contradict the beginning of the movie, where people believe demons were special effects, the song's ability could specifically target and erase memories that make people believe that demons are real. Of course, this is more messy now, but if the movie also wants to keep it possible that people see demons and believe that they're just costumes and special effects, then this needs to be established. Because without the ability to erase memories about demons, there is no way that the hunters and the demons stay secret. The beginning world-building segment could have established this already and should have done so if the movie was intended to go in the direction where only the hunters stay aware of the demons. Because otherwise, the people from the exposition scene would write stories and make cave paintings about these demons that took their souls until the first hunters saved them. Without the ability to erase memories about demons with the power of the song, the internal world-building logic does not hold up. Even a throwaway line about the song's ability to seal or erase memories would have been slightly better than no justification whatsoever. This leads me to another major issue in the movie, which I consider to be its biggest flaw, and this one is not as easily fixable or justifiable: the death of the Saja Boys. The Saja Boys, who were perhaps the biggest K-pop group in this cinematic universe and had just won the Idol Awards that were previously dominated by Huntrix, are killed by a giant demonic fire monster and the members of Huntrix. This is really bad. And memory erasure cannot fix this the same way that keeping the public unaware of demons would. Because let's say the public's memories about demons are erased. You still can't erase the memory of the Saja Boys, even if they're demons. Because who then won the Idol Awards? Who was on the Play Games With Us show? And what's all this merch about the Saja Boys? You can't erase the Saja Boys, because their impact was so huge. How I would have tried to justify this is that the Hunter's songs erased the memories of Kima killing Jinu and also erased the memories of Zoe and Mira killing Mystery and Abby. And instead of the public knowing that the Saja Boys were killed, they would have simply disappeared. They would have disappeared because their products were found defective, followed by convictions for tax evasion and other potential scandals. Now I agree that this solution is not airtight and it doesn't work completely, but I would say that it's better than nothing. And honestly, I don't know how to realistically justify the fact that a fan base of 50 million people would just accept the deaths of their idols. Of course, we don't see Baby Saja and Romance get killed on screen, so they could be alive, but still Mystery, Abby, and Jinu are confirmed dead. This also leads to something else about the death of the Saja boys that weakened the movie when it could have strengthened it. When the Saja boys perform Soda Pop and the Huntrix girls are watching, Mira wants to kill them immediately when they realize that they're demons. But Rumi stops her because she says that it's too public. That's why the girls wait for a better opportunity to strike, which leads to the play games with us scene. However, none of the girls think about the actual ramifications of what they're about to do. Killing high-profile people, which can't just be covered up. Zoe could have raised questions here, but instead the movie just powers through without establishing something important or delving deeper where it should have. Imagine an alternative scene where Zoe suggests that they capture the Saja boys instead of just killing them. Mira could push back, but Rumi could be more neutral and eventually side with either Mira or Zoe. This scene could then also establish the ability to erase memories about demons. Mira could argue that they should kill them as fast as possible before they grow more popular, so that the memory erasure is not as impactful. While Zoe could argue that they're already too popular to just kill and erase people's memories. Ultimately, the group could decide to capture the Saja boys, but if they're unable to capture them reasonably, they would kill them and come up with a way to sweep it under the rug. That alternative scene would not contradict the ending of the movie and Zoe and Mira killing Mystery and Abby, because in that situation they would have had no other option. But this kind of depth is really lacking from the movie all in all. And that's the biggest negative aspect of the movie. K-pop Demon Hunters lacks world building and depth, because in addition to the other issues I pointed out, there are more that are not necessarily plot holes or plot contrivances, but underdeveloped threads of the story that needed to be explored more thoroughly. Like, how are the hunters chosen? How do they gain their powers? Rumi is the daughter of one of the former hunters, but neither Zoe or Mira are daughters of Celine or the other Sunlight sister as far as we know. Does Celine retain her powers from when she was active, or does the power pass on or disappear once the Sunlight sister stopped? Now, I will say that these things being underdeveloped in the first movie is not the end of the world, and they're not really my main problem with the lack of world building and depth. My real issue comes from the fact that Rumi's mother had a relationship with a demon, and that gets glossed over almost entirely. Like, how was that relationship possible? And then they both die? How did this happen? Why did it happen? How did Rumi's parents die? The fact that this is entirely skipped over was the only moment in the movie where I was like, wait, what? I found myself being more interested in Rumi's mother as a character than anyone else in the movie. A demon hunter that fell in love with a demon? Well, it sounds like Rumi is really the child of her mother. But the fact that her mother's name is not even mentioned, and the fact that it's overall really underdeveloped, feels really weird. But you know who would perhaps know the name of Rumi's mother and know a lot more about the history of the demon hunters? Our dear friend Genu. And that's because Genu is over 400 years old. This literally means that by the time Genu became a demon, the 30 Years' War was going on. Genu would have been aware of the different generations of hunters whom he probably had to fight and escape from constantly. He could have even known Rumi's mother personally in theory. It's simply glossed over that Genu is literally older than the bicycle. And this also implies that there could be demons that are thousands of years old, and they are essentially immortal unless killed. Does this mean that Rumi would also be immortal? Does Rumi have the power to transform? Because she can teleport like Genu. Also, something else that's clunkily executed is how the Idol Awards show unfolds. The framing of how Mira and Zoe go to rescue Bobby, but don't make it back in time is clunky. Mira and Zoe rush to help Bobby, but the fact that they're so slow here, even though they can fly, and when they realize it's just a diversion and still don't make it back in time, feels contrived. I believe this could have been done more convincingly, like having the demons actually attack some of the employees at the show and forcing Mira and Zoe to fight. Also, the fact that the demons disguised as Mira and Zoe know the exact choreography of the takedown song is a stretch. That would mean that they secretly observed the Huntrix girls practicing the choreography, but the hunters didn't realize it. I thought that the hunters could sense if demons are nearby, as they react to the honeymoon being breached. In terms of fixing the underdeveloped elements of the world building and adding depth, there is not one clear way to fix it. Because with the other issues, you're somewhat limited with your options. But here there are limitless options in terms of what the story could establish. The only thing is to keep the world building and depth in the same continuity as the movie and not contradict anything. So it would not make sense for the former hunters, like the Sunlight Sisters, to retain their powers, because then Celine and the other Sunlight Sister should have been at the Idol Awards show to make sure that the demons don't intervene, because the fate of the world is potentially in the balance. But establishing something like Rumi's parents were assassinated by demons because Rumi's father betrayed the demons would make sense with the continuity of the movie. Even though I've pointed out some major and minor issues, I want to say that the movie is still good and absolutely deserves to be in the top 5 movies of 2025, and even though it might seem like some of these issues are pretty bad, the movie still doesn't collapse under them because the characters are still intact. And while these issues could be treated as plot holes, I see them more as execution problems. Because I feel like the writers created a coherent world, but they just didn't establish it thoroughly enough and had a clunky execution at some points. But overall, the vision and the ideas were not bad in the slightest. Because while fixing the death of the Saja boys is hard, it's not impossible or something that would make zero sense. Because it's not like Palpatine surviving the Death Star explosion. And honestly, I feel like it was intended for humans to be obliviated of memories about demons, but that just wasn't established. The movie just needed to establish these things, even if they're not perfect. Since we know that the writers are already working on a sequel, everything I said could potentially become irrelevant, because the sequel could absolutely fix all of these issues. Still, I strongly feel that these world-building gaps should have been addressed here and not in the sequel. But honestly, if the sequel addresses these points, I feel like K-pop Demon Hunters as a franchise will be rising through the ranks, because very rarely do sequels fix most of what was missing from the first movie. That being said, if the sequel does not address these world-building gaps, it will really weaken the overall structure of both movies. That's why I wanted to highlight these issues. Not to slander the writers, but to show the parts where the writing did not hold up as well as the rest of the movie. Because overall, I like the writing in K-pop Demon Hunters. I'm not saying that the movie should have established all of these points and have had perfect world building, but because so much is underdeveloped, it really brings the movie down a bit. The sequel could, and hopefully will, fix a lot of what was skipped in this movie, but we'll have to wait and see until then.